Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. Last year, Pottery Barn released some Terra Cotta pumpkins that went viral on the internet, and I didn't have a channel back then, but I have seen these popping up again this year, so I decided I wanted to make some. Now these pumpkins can be great for indoor or outdoor. They would look great on a porch, especially if you have some little pots and planters outside, and it's a really easy project too. So here's what you'll need. Some plastic pumpkins. I used a funkin from the craft store, these stacking pumpkins that I found at Five Below, and a candy bucket that I got at CVS. Now for paint, I saw people online using paint that you would get at Home Depot, but I wanted to do this on a budget, so I got this Terra Cotta paint from Michael's in the colors Clay Pot, Pueblo, and Dusty Trail. Spoiler alert, Pueblo ended up being my favorite color as it really captured a true terracotta. So if you're only gonna get one paint, that's the color I would choose. You'll need some paint brushes. I used both a sponge brush and a chip brush. The chip brush ended up being the better brush though, so maybe just get a few of those. And of course, some baking soda. Before we start, I wanna mention that there's some steps that I didn't do this time around that I would absolutely do if I did this over. First, I would use a fine sandpaper and just sand around all of the plastic pumpkins just to get a little texture going so that the paint would adhere better. And I think I'd also prime them with an acrylic spray paint. I didn't do these steps and I noticed that the paint was just really easy to kind of scratch off. And I think that if I had done these two steps, that would have ensured that the paint would stay on better. So this is just something to be aware of at home. Anyway, let's get into it. I wanted to start with the most orange paint I had, Clay Pot. I brushed this on the funkin first, using a chip brush. Then I put the funkin to the side to dry before starting on the bottom pumpkin of the stacking pumpkins in the same color. This paint needs 1 hour to dry in between coats, so I set those aside and moved on to the next color. Next, I wanted to experiment to see if I could get more of a clay texture, so I added baking soda into the Dusty Trail paint before painting it onto the middle pumpkin from the stacking set. In the end, I don't think this made a difference in texture with this specific paint, although it may with a regular acrylic craft paint. Again, I set that aside for an hour to dry and moved on to the top pumpkin and candy bucket, which I painted in my favorite color, Pueblo. The top pumpkin was easy enough, but when it came to the turquoise candy bucket, I knew I would have to do multiple layers. First, I sponged on the paint over the face to really pack on the color and hide the black paint. Then, I used a chip brush to work around the rest of the pumpkin. I let it dry for an hour before doing a second coat, this time only using the chip brush. I think the second coat really benefited the result, so I would recommend doing that if you're following along at home. To adhere the baking soda, I took out some hairspray and from a distance sprayed on a light coat. I think if I did this again, I would maybe use a fixative spray, but this is what I had on hand. I would wait about 30 seconds after spraying to dust on some of the baking soda. I would also use my finger to press it into the ridges and details of each pumpkin. Make sure to use a light spray and wait for 30 seconds. Otherwise, you'll end up rubbing off your paint. I repeated this final process on each pumpkin, making sure they had that dusty clay look, which I guess means it's time for the reveal. Here they are! Overall, I think this project was a success. It just needs a little fine-tuning. I really like how they turned out, but there is still some sheen to some of the pumpkins, which is another reason why if I did this again, I would sand and prime the pumpkins before going in with paint, so that they would stay matte and clay-like. I turned the candy bucket into a flower holder, but you could also potentially use it to hold potted plants too. Again, I think this project is something anyone can do. It could be fun to do with friends or your family, so let me know if you think you'd try this out at home. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me over on TikTok and Instagram at cleverghoul.yt, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!